Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Sneha for CELPIP and IELTS. In today's video, we are going to begin with the discussion of reading module of CELPIP. And today we'll be doing part 1 of the reading module. And before I actually start discussing what's there in reading part 1, first of all, let's try to understand the reading module a bit better. So when I talk about reading module in CELPIP, you have 4 tasks in total. So there is task 1, reading correspondence. This one we're going to discuss today. Then there is part 2, reading to apply a diagram. Then there is part 3, reading for information. And then there is part 4, reading for viewpoints. And for each of these parts, these are the number of questions that you will have in the exam. So for part 1, you have total 11 questions and you get 11 minutes to solve them. For part 2, you have 8 questions in total, you get 9 minutes. Part 3 has 9 questions in total, you get 10 minutes. And part 4 has 10 questions in total and you get 13 minutes. So all in all, your reading part 4 is going to take around an hour in your examination. And this is the second module that you will find in CELPIP after the listening module. Now, there is one unscored practice task as well, usually in the beginning of the module. So you get one unscored task. It's not scored, however, you have to attempt it. So there can be one question in the beginning for which you get 1 minute and you should actually solve it just to understand the software, the interface of the examination better. However, in some of the recent shifts, it's been found that one of the parts, it's being repeated. However, the part that is repeated, one of that won't be scored and you will not know which is which. So let's say there can be 2 part 4 in your shift. So one would be scored, the other one would be unscored. You have to attempt both and you're not going to know which is unscored and which one is scored. So it's being seen in recent shifts. Now, we have discussed about the scoring of the reading module previously. So in my CELPIP overview video, you can actually find how the CELPIP reading section is scored. So if you do not know about it, you can go back to the video, go through the video, just see that how scoring is actually done. I've explained everything over there. Today we'll be discussing reading part 1. And before I actually start with the discussion of reading part 1, let's try to understand the skills that you need for the reading module. Now, when I talk about skills, it's all about time management. You have to manage your time better, and for that, you have to be really good in some skills that are particularly useful for this reading module. So, 2 such skills are skim and scan. Now, scan is when you move your eyes very quickly around the text. You're searching for some key information and you're moving your eyes very quickly around the text just to find that key information. For example, let's say there is some name, let's say Smith, given in the text. This name is given in the text. And you are searching for this name in the whole text. So you will be moving your eyes very quickly around the text just to search for this key information. So that is called scanning. And skimming is when again you are reading certain part of the text. However, here this time you're not focusing or you're not searching for some keyword. Rather, you are trying to understand the main idea of that part. So again, you're reading very fast around the text. You're reading not all the words, just the main words, and your focus this time is to get the main idea, the gist of the text. So these 2 techniques are particularly very useful when it comes to reading module of CELPIP. And today we'll be beginning with part 1, which is reading correspondence. Here, I'll actually show you that how we make use of these two techniques. So we'll be using scanning, we'll be using skimming in part 1 today. And talking about the types of questions that are there in reading module. Now in reading, you have 3 types of question. Number 1 is where you try to understand the general meaning, the main idea of the text. So you read a text, you try to understand its main idea, that what's the summary, what's the text is about. So that is called general meaning. Here, most of the time, you skim, you do not scan. Then question number 2 is specific detail types of question. Now here, what you'll be doing is you will be focusing on some key information. You'll be looking for some keyword in the text, and for that you'll be using scanning. So you might be searching for a date, you might be searching for a name. So these are the key information that you might be searching for here in specific detail types of question. Third type of question that is asked is inference based. Now what happens in inference based types of question is that the information is implicit. That means it's not directly stated in the text. You have to understand the text, you have to come to the conclusion on the basis of your understanding, and accordingly you have to mark the correct answer. So these are called inference based question. Now over here, scanning, skimming, they both really work because here information is not direct. So it's only your understanding that's going to be helpful. However, again, when it comes to inference based question, we have certain techniques which makes it easier for us to answer these types of questions. So without waiting, let's actually come to part 1 of reading module. So part 1 of reading module, as I said, it's reading correspondence. Correspondence means it's kind of an email or a letter given to you. The text is some email or letter given to you, and you have to answer some question based on that text given to you. So this is how your part 1, it will look like in your exam. So you see the text, it's kind of an email or a letter. As you can see, Margaret is writing it to Michelle. On the basis of this text, you have these questions which are MCQs. So you have 4 options for each of the question over here. So it's question number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in this part only, part 1 of reading, there is reply to this email. Now, Michelle is writing back to Margaret. So this is a reply to the email, and rest of the questions, they are here in the reply, and these are now in the form of fill in the blanks. And the options for these would be given in the form of drop down menu in your examination. Here, these are given over here. So as you can see, 4 options for question number 7, 4 options for question number 8, and so on. In total, there are 11 questions in part 1 of reading. Question number 1 to 6 are from this email, and rest of the questions are based on the reply to this email. So you have 11 questions in total, and you get a total of 11 minutes to solve them. So that means on an average you have 1 minute for each question. Now when we talk about part 1 of reading, the approach that you should be using in your examination is directly coming to the questions. Please don't wait, waste your precious minutes, I would say, reading the text first and then going to the questions. Come to the questions directly. And depending on the type of question, you will be using those skills. You remember we talked about scanning, skimming. We remember we saw these types of questions. So there were general meaning types of question, there were specific details type of question, and then there were inference based questions. So depending on the type of question, you'll be using certain strategies to solve them. All right. So now let's begin with how you actually should solve part 1 of reading. Now, when it comes to part 1 of reading, directly come to the questions. As I said, read question number 1. Margaret's grandparents live in. Now, this is a specific detail type of question because here the question is asking only for that place where Margaret's grandparents live. It's asking about that specific detail. So that means when I search for the answer for this question, I am only going to focus on some keywords. And keywords are the main words that will help you find the answer. So keywords are those words that you will be trying to find in this text for your answer. And here the keywords are grandparents live. So now I am going to scan the text for these keywords. So here it says, hi Michelle, it's great to hear from you. I'm very excited about the vacations too and have been planning them for a long time now. This is indeed the favorite time of the year for me. So far, I did not find these keywords. I keep on reading. I have an idea. Why don't you come around with us this time? Usually, I go to my summer house in Moscow and spend the summers there with my friends and grandparents enjoying nature. All right. Now, I have this keyword and I can also see one option over here. It's written Moscow. So I tried to match this question with this information. Question has asked me Margaret's grandparents live in. So you scan the text. Once you have found the keywords, read this part of the text in detail just to see if this is the information that you were looking for or not. So if Margaret is saying that I go to my summer house in Moscow, she has a summer house in Moscow and she spends summers there with her friends and grandparents enjoying nature. So Margaret's grandparents, they live in Moscow. That would be the answer. You find the keywords, then you read in depth around those keywords to get to the correct answer. And if you think it's still confusing to you, what you can do is look for the other options in the text, if they are related to grandparents or not. So if I look at this St. Petersburg, I again scan the text for St. Petersburg and I find it here. Here she is saying that we both can go together to St. Petersburg this time. I haven't been there since I was young. So here she has not mentioned anything about grandparents. So her grandparents, they don't live in St. Petersburg. Now this option number 3, again I scan it. So it's mentioned over here. Option number 4 is also here. Now let's try to see if anything related to grandparents has been mentioned over here. We set up our camps beside the Lake Chubakul, that is in the Chelyabinsk region in Russia. I cannot say that the summer was very hot. So here she's talking about these two places just to say that she went there for this camp or something. So again, there is nothing related to grandparents. That means Moscow is the correct answer. So we scan the text for specific detail types of question. Similarly, we are going to find the answer for question number 2. Margaret usually spends her summers. So Margaret, what does she do is she spends her summers doing something. And these are the 4 options. These are the keywords for you now. Spends her summers. What does she do? So we keep on reading. I have a wonderful garden with different flowers. It's usual for us Russians to grow vegetables and fruit at summer houses. I prefer working in my garden and hiking Most people spend the summer on the shores, swimming and sunbathing, but I spend the summers walking a lot in the woods, picking berries and mushrooms. The last time we were there, we saw a lot of birds and animals that we don't have in the city. I even got to see a large moose with huge antlers and never thought that forests could be so interesting. Now, here, Margaret is talking about how he spends her summers. Yes, because she's saying that I go to my summer house in summers. There, what does she do? Grow vegetables, fruit, working in my garden, hiking, walking a lot in the woods, picking berries and mushrooms. Then she's saying about this woods only, that the last time she went there, she saw a lot of birds and animals that are not there in the city. So yes, this text is talking about question number 2 for sure. So options are exploring new towns and cities, spending time with grandparents, swimming and sunbathing, hiking and gardening. So what's that one thing that she does in her summers usually? So that would be hiking and gardening. It's clearly mentioned gardening, hiking. She does not like swimming and sunbathing. Here she was saying most people spend summer on shore swimming and sunbathing, but I spend summer walking a lot in the woods. She doesn't like this idea of swimming and sunbathing. Exploring new towns and cities, no, it's not mentioned over here. Spending time with grandparents. Now, spending time with grandparents is not what she usually does. Yes, she's there with her grandparents, but the focus of the text is on enjoying nature. That's being discussed again and again in the text. So, usually she spends her summers hiking and gardening. That would be the correct answer. Now, come to question number 3. Margaret and Michelle are. How are these two people related? Now, this is an inference-based question. It's not stated directly anywhere in the text. You have to understand the text. You have to understand the tone of the text. So, whenever you have to establish relation between two people, first and foremost, try to see what's the tone of the text. So it says, hi Michelle, love Margaret. Definitely these two people are not co-workers. They can be sisters, cousin, friends. Now how do we come to the correct answer? Now here Margaret is saying my summer house, and then she says my grandparents, love, hi. All these things will point out that it's an informal tone, and because of these words, my summer house, my grandparents, most probably they're going to be friends. They are actually friends. Why? Because if they were sisters or cousins, she won't be saying my summer house, my grandparents. Right? So they're going to be friends. So you have to understand the tone to establish the relation between the two people. Now, question number 4 says, Margaret wants Michelle to travel with her so that. So, what's the reason why Margaret wants Michelle to travel with her? If you remember, we read this line that we both can go together to St. Petersburg this time. So, when I say that Margaret wants Michelle to travel with her, that means they both want to travel to some place. And this is the exact line in the entire text that says that if Michelle joins Margaret, they both will travel to St. Petersburg this time. So, the answer is going to be so that they can travel to St. Petersburg. Now, this text does not say that they can save on travel expenses. That is why Margaret wants Michelle to travel with her. Option number 2, Michelle could avoid Margaret's grandparents. It's completely off the topic. Not at all stated anywhere in the text. 4th says, she can enjoy the natural beauty of her country. This is not the reason why Margaret wants Michelle to travel with her. She is only stating this, to convince her that you should come to my country. The weather is perfect. You will find the natural beauty of my country very attractive. So this is just to convince her. That's not the reason. So the correct answer would be third. Now let's come to question number 5. Margaret enjoyed her trip to Lake Chabacal because. What is the reason why Margaret enjoyed her trip? So again, look for the keywords. Lake Chabacal trip. So this is mentioned over here, right? And this lake has been again mentioned over here. So my answer is going to be somewhere here. So I read in depth now. We set up our camps beside the Lake Chabacal, that is in this region in Russia. I cannot say that the summer was very hot, but we had fun at the camp. We played games and read books. I really enjoyed being there beside the large and beautiful lake. So what's the reason why she enjoyed her trip to Lake Chabacal? The reason is because she was there beside the lake. This sentence clearly mentions it. I really enjoyed being there. Why? Because she was there beside this large lake. So the only reason is she liked being close to the lake. Now if you look at option number 1, it doesn't make any sense. If the summer was too hot, why she would enjoy her trip? And option number 2 says because she could read a lot of books. No, this was the activity that she mentioned, that they played games and they read books. That is not the reason. The reason is here. I really enjoyed there beside the large and beautiful lake. So it doesn't make any sense, these two options. Fourth is going to be the correct answer. And then question number 6 says Margaret finds forests interesting. Now we have to search for the reason that why Margaret thinks forests are interesting. So if you remember, we read this paragraph and related to forests, some sentence was there definitely when she talked about woods. Then she said, the last time we were there, we saw a lot of birds and animals that we don't have in the city. And then she gave an example that I even got to see a large moose with huge antlers. And then she says this line that forests are interesting. So why is she saying that forests are interesting? Because of this incident of moose. That means lots of birds and animals in the city are there in the forests. So Margaret finds forests interesting because she had seen birds and animals that are not found in cities. That's why she's saying it. Now look at option number 1. It says she wants to see a moose with huge antlers. She does not want to see. That is an example that she gave, that she saw one moose. Doesn't make any sense. One can go on long treks. No, that is not the reason why she is saying that forests are interesting. That is written after this line, that we saw a lot of birds and animals. Third says she can pick and eat wild berries and mushrooms. She does this thing in the woods, but why forests are interesting is because of this fact that there are a lot of birds and animals that are not there in the city. So that would be option number 4. So this is how you use scanning, you use skimming based on the type of question that you're solving in question number 1 to 6 of part 1. Now let's see that how the rest of the questions they are solved. Now we have these rest of the 5 questions of part 1, and as I said previously, now these are questions, they are related to the response to that email that we read previously. So now what happens is Michelle is writing back to Margaret. And she says, your travel plans are splendid and I really want you to enjoy your trip, but I am afraid I won't be able to accompany you this year. I am planning to visit Cyprus with my parents this year. It is a large island in the Mediterranean and my parents have already booked my tickets. I want to pass my days on the beaches lying in the shade of huge eucalyptus trees. So Michelle is now sharing her plans that she is going to Cyprus with her parents, and there what she will be doing is passing her days on the beaches. So she is going to spend her time on beach. And then she says this thing, but I think you dash, and these are the options. Now, in this response to the message, whenever you have these contrasting words, please pay attention to them. They can be a clue for you. We know that whenever we have such words such as but, however, on the other hand, whereas, they show contrast. They connect two opposing ideas, right? So if she is saying that she will spend her time on the beach, but I think you will enjoy that, would not like that, would be surprised by that, will like to come along. Now, if you remember the text, Margaret, she mentioned something about swimming, sunbathing shores over here. That most people, they spend their summer on the shores, swimming and sunbathing, but I spend the summers walking a lot in the woods. That means Margaret does not like the idea of spending time or spending summer on the beach. So, Michelle's idea of passing her days on the beaches would not be liked by Margaret because she's not a person. And that is why Michelle will say that, but I think you would not like that. That refers to idea of spending time on beach because she does not enjoy that, right? So this makes sense, but I think you would not like that. And then she continues and says, we would be traveling along mountain paths, just like you would be having a great time, something. So we here is Michelle and her parents, that they would be traveling along mountain paths, just like Margaret would be having a great time. So what does Margaret like to do? You here is Margaret. Michelle is writing to Margaret. So what will Margaret be doing, which she likes? So, having a great time in the lap of the nature, picking berries and mushrooms, growing fruits and vegetables, or looking for an interesting forest. Now, if you look at these options, almost all of these things are done by Margaret. So, how do you choose the correct answer? She picks berries and mushrooms. If you remember, it was there, right, that she goes to forests. She picks berries and mushrooms. She grows fruits and vegetables, yes. Working in my garden, we Russians grow fruits and vegetables at summer house. Looking for an interesting forest, yes, she likes the idea of forests as well. So all the options, they seem correct. Then how do we decide? Now there is one option which includes the rest of the options. And you're going to mark that one. And that is number 1, in the lap of the nature. Because this whole paragraph was related to enjoying nature. Again and again, it is focusing on enjoying nature. So when Margaret's interest is being discussed, she is someone who enjoys nature. So then Michelle continues and says, I am also waiting to play tennis at the resort. I hope you enjoy your summer in dash. So why or what will Michelle say that I hope Margaret enjoys her summer in? So where is Margaret enjoying her summer? We read it over here that she goes to her summer house in Moscow and she's there, she's doing all these things. So obviously she'll say that I hope you enjoy your summer in Moscow. That would be the correct answer. St. Petersburg was the location that they both would have traveled if Michelle had joined Margaret. But since she did not, So they're not going to St. Petersburg. Chabarkal, she already went there. She said that we set up our camps beside Lake Chabarkal, right? So she already went there. That is not going to be the answer. And Michelle is in Cyprus. Margaret is not in Cyprus. So Moscow is going to be the answer. Then she says, do keep me posted about your dash. So what will Michelle say? Do keep me posted about. Keep me posted about means that keep on giving me updates related to where, maybe where are you going, what are you going to do in your vacation. So she is talking about future, right? So whatever you do, keep on sharing your experience with me. That is what she means to say. So that would be, do keep me posted about your visit to the lake. No, she already went there, right? Experience at the youth camp, again, she already went there. She's not going to do in future. Encounters with the moose, again, it's an experience that she had in the past. So travel adventure makes sense. That means whatever she does, whatever activity she's going to do in her rest of the summers, keep on giving me updates related to that. So that would be your answer. And for the last one, I am sure that something would refresh us before the beginning of the new school term next month. So our vacations or the books we read, meeting up friends or long nature treks, they both are on vacations, right? See, the whole text is about vacation. So she will say that I am sure that our vacations will refresh us before the beginning of the school term. Refresh means to relieve all your stress and be fresh again, right? So that is something that we get because of vacation, not because of the books or meeting up friends. Here the text is not about meeting up friends. That doesn't make any sense. Long nature treks, it again doesn't make any sense because the focus of the text and refreshing is something that we get because of the whole vacation, right? So that would be the correct answer, right? And this is how you solve part 1 of reading. And for a quick revision, we looked at the number of the types of question. We looked at the techniques of scanning and skimming. We looked at the type of questions, and accordingly we use scanning or skimming, right? We focus on the keywords, try to find the keywords, match them with the options and get to the correct answer. So this was about part 1 of reading for today. In my upcoming videos, I will be discussing with you the rest of the parts of reading, and gradually we'll be moving on to the other modules as well. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do that so you do not miss out on any update or any important video. See you in the upcoming classes. Take care. Bye-bye.